Basically, all I know about Dungeons & Dragons is that it is a tabletop RPG that none of my mates want to touch with a 10-foot pole. But when a Dungeons & Dragons video game released where you and 3 friends can group up and take on, well, dungeons, they still didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But fuck it, I'll play it anyways.
Greetings! It's a pleasure to meet you.
Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance has just released, and I've already seen some early reviews saying that this is the worst game of 2021 and to not touch it. However, I can say by far that this isn't the worst game of the year. Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, which I'll just call Dark Alliance, is a third-person Dark Souls-light dungeon crawler where you and up to 3 other friends will, well, as you can see, just move through areas and take out creatures from the Dungeons & Dragons universe. You'll start off by selecting one of 4 characters, each with their own abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. Now, obviously, the character that I picked looked most like me, because, you know, I have a beard.
A great big bushy beard! Come on!
First thing you'll notice, or, well, the first thing I noticed when booting up Dark Alliance for the first time was the damn music.
That sounds dope.
The sound design and score. Damn, it puts you straight into the mood for playing the game and would probably work really well for playing the tabletop RPG as well. Shit, honestly, this music could work in a heap of video games, like Formula 1 for instance, or maybe Broforce, or what about Sea of Thieves? Graphically too, Dark Alliance looks pretty damn cool with level designs and atmospheres looking great, and the cutscenes themselves are cool. I mean, some of these cutscenes look like they've been pulled straight from Lord of the Rings or something. I mean, look at how epic this looks. Gameplay wise, I played Dark Alliance on a PC, and for the first hour or so I used a mouse and keyboard, and it's safe to say that this game is made to be played with a controller. If you've played Jedi Fallen Order, Dark Souls, or anything like that, then Dark Alliance will be familiar but a bit rougher. I played as the Barbarian, who you can see is a bit slow to attack, but he deals loads of damage, and as you level up and learn new abilities, you can chain attacks together. You'll have your standard health bar and stamina bar, which will drop anytime you use light, heavy, or ranged attacks. But there's also this little white bar on the stamina bar too, and anytime you use attacks while your stamina is empty, it'll drop this bar and then shorten your stamina gauge when you recharge your stamina. Throughout each level and after large encounters, you'll have the opportunity to rest up and restore your health potions, stamina, and to create a checkpoint for yourself. However, you can disregard these rest options to increase the rarity of your loot. It's up to you with you and your crew if you want to, say, rest up or risk getting better rewards for potentially starting the mission again at the start of the level. Speaking of starting missions again, yes, there is a revive system in place, but only if you're playing with a party. If you're playing solo, you'll either go back to the start or back to your nearest rest location, and some enemy variants you'll go up against are annoying and cheap. You'll start off going up against goblins and trolls and fat trolls, maybe they're ogres. Anyways, you'll start up going against creatures from the Dungeons & Dragons universe, but seeing as I know nothing about this world, you'll go up against creatures that you've seen in most fantasy movies or video games. The first couple of levels, or dungeons if you will, you'll go up against goblins, and playing as a barbarian you can basically just go in swinging. However, shortly after the first dungeon you'll go up against basically dark dwarves, some of which that are equipped with shields. When enemies have shields, you need to basically take down their own stamina bar, which they'll use to hold up their shields and block attacks. Make sense? No? Well, in layman's terms, you just attack them until their shield bar drops and then you damage their health. There's also ranged enemies, giant boss fights, traps, evil wizards, and more. Now, while the combat is pretty straightforward, the enemies are varied, there is an issue with the gameplay.
Let's try something else. Maybe we should...
Put the dice away before I take them away.
Dark Alliance is a bit clunky, and when I mean clunky, yeah, let's sort of get into it. So in games like, say, Jedi Fallen Order, which has a similar combat style, if an enemy moved during an attack in Fallen Order, you could move Cal so his attacks would then move when the target has moved too, right? However, you can't really do that here in Dark Alliance. If, for example, a cultist teleports away while you're attacking, you can't move the barbarian character, or in my instance, you couldn't move my character, and he'll just swing away into nothing, or into a brick wall, or just off the ledge. Enemies and heroes also flinch when they've been hit, especially if it's a heavy attack, and there's been multiple occasions where I've been at the end of my swing and I've been hit by something, and then I've flinched, and then I've been ganked up upon by enemies. Multiple times, whether it's against boss fights or standard enemy variants, there were moments where I'd been wailing and dealing loads of damage when all of a sudden enemies would just stop flinching to attacks and then turn around and deal a fuckload of damage out of nowhere, where my character would get knocked on their ass. Speaking of which, there were moments where my character was lying down on the ground after getting hit and he wouldn't move, and would only respond to the jump button when then he'd just magically jump off the ground from lying down. Okay. The character design for heroes as well feel like they're medieval heroes from something like Super Mario Bros. Or out of World of Warcraft, but more cartoonish. Character designs for cultists and dragons and goblins and such all look great, but their heroes feel like they're just from another world. Now, thanks to a viewer who was watching me play this on Twitch, I understand we're playing as characters that exist in the Dungeons & Dragons world, but having a Dungeons & Dragons game where we don't get to create our own character seems like a very bad decision. Character-wise, we've got a barbarian, a dwarf, a ranger, and an archer, but there's also no mage. Now, when it comes to MMOs, medieval games, or fantasy games, I generally tend to play as the mage class, and it's crap that there is no mage here. It seems like a missed opportunity to me. On top of that, yes, you can equip better gear and weapons for your character.
Here, take my +1 mace.
Okay, here I go.
But there are outfits where you'll have gaps between, say, where your pants end and where your shirt starts, and you'll be able to see straight through your body and onto the floor. Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance isn't the worst game of the year, not at all. Now that I actually think about it so far for 2021, Subverse is pretty up there, seeing as that game has been out for a little while now and we're still yet to get any more content for that game, and it's also not on sale with the Steam sales. Anyways, Dark Alliance, yes, it is not the worst game of the year, but it's also not the best at the same time. It's completely fine. It's a game that will excite Dungeons & Dragons fans, and for others, it's a game that will kill time with friends until something else comes out that does the exact same thing. Thankfully too as well, Dark Alliance is on Game Pass, and I believe it's also crossplay between PC and the Xbox. Now finally, just before we wrap up, for anyone interested, for any upcoming video reviews that I can stream, I'm doing so over on Twitch. So for my Rainbow Six Siege Operation Northstar or Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, I streamed a lot of my footage over on Twitch. Now obviously I can't do this for new release games due to embargo settings, but for games that I can stream, I will. So if you want to get some early impressions for upcoming reviews, feel free to check it out at twitch.tv/dame_Dudi_dench, and until then, I'll see you next week, mates.
Interesting stuff. Stay tuned for more Tales of Interest!